Welcome to Dice Down Gaming. This week we are talking about the new player experience in Warmachine MK4. Is it good? Is it bad? Can we improve it? I'd love to hear your experiences if you're a new player or have just got into the game. How are you finding it? And for your vets, how did you find it when you got into the game? To everyone who has been kind enough to tune in, how are you? How's your week been? And most important question of every week, how are you, Dan? How's your week been?
Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to play last week, but I've got a game this week on Wednesday. Just getting everything ready for a tournament next weekend. And yeah, I'm looking forward to. I can't wait for next weekend to play a load of Warmachine over Saturday and Sunday. Can't wait. It'll be amazing.
Nice. We are, of course, attending World Masters next weekend. A few guys from the south coming up, so that will be really nice. I myself got to play one game this week against the lovely Sherwin. I brought the amazing Bagger the Born, the frog overlord of the Brian Bloods, against some piggies. It was frogs against pigs. And I managed to win on an assassination. And Bagger the Born slapped Helga around the face, which was
Yeah,
great. We had a lot of fun. We had a laugh, so that was the main thing. Bluffkin says, "Sup lads, hey mate." I think that's Steve, I believe. How you doing, man? Hope you're good. Um, so what I'd like to start with today is, and actually probably what inspired us to talk about it, is there was a post on Reddit called "New Player Perspective" about Warmachine, and it's a person who has just started playing Warmachine and posted their thoughts. So I'm gonna read out this um, post if you don't mind, Dan, and then we'll go on to the overall discussion. So
going up on screen so people can see it as well.
yeah, I've got it on screen. Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's a post on the War Machine Reddit from 5 days ago called New Player Perspective, and it starts with "Hello everyone. This may be a bit of a rant or event, but it's what I've witnessed and experienced as a new player to War Machine. There's a pretty solid War Machine group in my area, and I'd say that's pretty common. Most of some of the time, you join a group of players playing War Machine, and they're all experienced. Um, Many have won tournaments and play frequently. I've just started Mark IV. So it's the experience of someone joining a group that have all played, and somewhat can know the rules and play the game, and it's a new player. I understand winning isn't everything. It's the joy of playing and chatting with the other player. We all find enjoyment in this hobby in our own special ways. With that being said, winning a few would be nice. If I played 50 games of War Machine, I've lost 50 games of War Machine, some of which I was totally killed off the table by turn 3, and we'll talk about deep dive this.
Yeah.
Even 2 in some cases. Most of the players I play are very skilled, and I feel that hinders my experience as a new player. I'm stumbling through my activation orders and missing so many stacking buffs as debuffs, and my activation order is all out of whack. And I'm sure I feat at the worst time. New player, new mistakes. Goes on to say that I think War Machine heading in a great direction. Love the sculpts and the rules; they're pretty cool. As a new player, I'm struggling to keep the motivation going. I find myself not wanting to play anymore because I often leave my matches wondering why am I spending 3 hours to lose a game clearly I'm not understanding. Think I'm slipping more into the hobby aspect of it all. I often tell my opponents that I'm new and still learning, but doesn't seem to change the match. My last 2 games were 30 points. First one did alright, he lost by turn 3. Then he lost by turn 2 on the next one. Didn't have a second turn, lol. My opponent totally killed all my stuff. It's frustrating and sad to realise I'm not understanding this game enough to warrant continued play. And it goes on to say, anyway, this is my rant. And this sort of inspired me and Dan to sort of have a talk about the whole new player experience in War Machine Mark IV. Dan, why don't you kick us off with, I read that and sort of sent it to you. What was your initial reactions of that post?
Honestly, I think that person's community need to have a look at themselves and consider whether they want to grow the community and whether they want new players to come in, or whether they want the game to be stale and them to face each other just over and over and over. I think the new player experience that was described then is somewhat typical in the idea of results, but I think that community has done a disservice to the game of War Machine, and just to war game in general. I think it's really bad form for experienced players that have won tournaments to feel like they've got to still seal club, as a term we used to use, a new player. Um, in our local community, me and you I'd say, are some of the most experienced. And well, there's been times where certainly we've got the wins. If we've got a player that we know is new, you go out of your way to try and make sure that they have an engaging experience. You try and make sure that you are giving them things to kill. Um, it's certainly in complete contrast to how I've tried to introduce Steve, one of our locals, that has never played games before. I wonder if he's going to comment later. But I felt a huge amount of shame for that community's interaction with the new player. But I also think there's some aspects of the game which are really tricky, and I can imagine. And I remember being a new player myself and getting stomped. But I think it's just for me, it's just a shame that that person feels they can't really continue or they don't want to continue necessarily. And it's where instead of having someone go, "Oh yeah, do you know what? I've won loads of tournaments. We're going to play a game. Oh, let's talk it through. Let's have a lot of conversation beforehand, and let me help you improve." And I think there is a lot of depth for new players. We'll talk about the new player experience, sort of in how it can be improved and how you can have a fantastic experience. But I think that overall, when I read that for the first time, I just thought, oh, what a shame that that community didn't really try and include and foster and bring them in. I know we've had another local player called Den who felt a bit down in the dumps, if we're honest, with results. He felt like he was losing a lot. He's like, "Oh, I'm getting the ideas," but because we're having steamrollers where it's a bit more competitive, he felt like, "Oh, I'm not getting anywhere." But then actually, the last couple of steamrollers, he's managed to go. I think it's 2-2 in most of them, or he's done well. He's finding that actually he's now teaching people and he's beating people and things. But yeah, my overall thoughts were I completely understand where that experience comes from. I can remember having a lot of those experiences when I was younger, when I was starting Warmachine. But I did think it's just bad form of his or hers community. What did you think?
Yeah, great points there. Steve says, Warmachine as my first ever war game. What can I say? I like the size of the armies, that we can play different points to really get used to the game without being overwhelmed. He hates the spell rack. Interesting, Steve. Why do you not like the spell rack? And he said that community is nothing like I've experienced. Dan and or Aaron, I've always felt engaged. That's what. Thank you, Steve. That's very kind of you. So it's interesting. Obviously, I think the the community probably could do more for this guy to have him have more engaging games, right? But I also think there's an element of truth in there. Is that there's a point where, say Steve is a good example. At one point, Steve says, "I no longer want to be coached. I now want to just play the game. I don't want you to tell me like what to do or give me advice. I just want to try and play the game." And I think the point where you go from there to winning your first game is massive, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's nothing really that you can say apart from keep learning, keep playing, and at one point you will win a game.
Yeah.
I agree that obviously when you play someone very experienced, you can ask them to offer them advice post game, right? What did I do bad? What did I
Yeah.
do good? Etc. You can maybe use resources to practice your deployment outside of the game, etc. But I think
Yeah.
fundamentally that that bridge of going from learning the game to achieving success in the game and whatever parameter you define success is pretty massive. And I would say that actually, I speaking to a few people trying to get like there's no silver bullet for that in the game. And
Yeah.
ultimately, you just have to have this little level of resilience, right? You have to accept that you need to play these games, and at one point, it will stop being so painful, and you'll start getting better. But a question I'd like to pose to you, 'cause we're not sort of this is the first one we've caught up in a
That's right.
while, is
Yeah.
that do you think that needing that resilience to feel like you're in the game a barrier, right? Because say you're playing 40k or Sigma, okay, you get a few demo games, and now you're like, all right, I'm gonna try and learn the game. I would say for those games, you
Yeah.
feel like you're in the game and you're doing stuff earlier than you would War Machine, right? So with 40k, say the score's larger, right? So you might win on 30 VPs. And then
Yeah.
also, the games are, they kind of last 6 turns. And there's
Yeah. They
more
can.
models and you do more stuff, right? So even
Yeah.
if you lose a game that's lasted 4 turns, you've probably killed some of your opponent's stuff. You've probably
Yeah.
scored some VPs and you've moved some stuff around, right? So you've at least felt like, okay, I've somewhat played the
You're
game.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
In War Machine, if you've lost by turn 2 and someone's assassinated you top of 2, you very much feel like I essentially didn't play the game, right? And do you think that that level of just being told or you just got to suck it up essentially until you win a game. Is that a hurdle slash barrier to new players enjoying the game?
I think it is a barrier to getting a wider range of new players to play the game. But I also think that I'll be honest with you, this might be controversial. I think that the level of resilience people have now has decreased. And I think when people are investing their time, effort, money, and we've spoken about how valuable time is, just putting money, putting models on the table, having painted them for ages, having that understanding, and that I think lots of people when they come to a new game, it might be even someone that says they're not that competitive. They want to win. They want their toy to do things. Um, and I think that it is a barrier for new players because I think it can be really disheartening losing over again, and particularly in Warmachine, where, like you say, you can lose on scenario or be assassinated turn 2. It's different to if you just had your army killed on turn 2 in 40k or another system. But I still think there's as much of there's still learnings to be taken from from learning the core rules to actually being good at the game. But I think that I agree with you, there's that huge gap. But I think the barrier to entry for new players is more barrier to entry to be competitive within their own communities. So what I mean by that is that I think that I agree with you. If for some games it feels like they're more open, and I think it feels like there's some systems where you go, oh, do you know what? Actually, you might lose, but you'll feel like you're in it. And I think that's fair. I think because again, when we talk about Steamroller, it is focused on competitive play, and I think maybe that's where some new scenarios could be implemented, some learn to play scenarios, or eventually when we get narrative scenarios. I think that's going to be really important to help those new players practice the core skills, but in a more friendly sort of communicative environment. But I also think there is a problem with the sort of more just generally of the resilience has decreased nationally, and probably possibly even internationally recently. I've certainly seen it sort of from playing people as well. Not just this isn't just in board games. I've seen it in card games as well. And when things go badly, like, oh, it's just people. It's like we said before, when the people used to complain about the dice, they just complain about the cards. They just complain about X, Y, and Z. But it does suck as a new player. I mean, I can remember losing lots when I was new. And I can remember there was a time where I thought, am I just bad at this game? Is this game just not for me? And I do. It's strange, but I think that's almost comes almost like Stockholm syndrome, where once you get through it, you're like, yeah, but it's worth it. The peak's worth it, but you just got to get through it. But I can imagine it turns a hell of a lot of players off. But I think if you oversimplify Warmachine's rules, it's then not Warmachine. But I do think there could be some more learn to play or entry level scenarios or game styles, so then people can play it and learn. But there's still going to be a huge jump when you jump to a steamroller. That's what I kind of think at the moment. I definitely think there's some things we can talk about that can definitely help new players, and there's some things I think that really hinder a new player from learning. I think the biggest thing with Warmachine is positioning. I think it's the biggest thing in wargaming. But I think you hit the nail on the head where Warmachine, you don't have as many models, so actually it's more impactful when you lose stuff. In saying that, when I lost my Phantasm after painting it up and spending ages, and I lost it at the start of turn 2, because I'm an experienced player, I was able to have that resilience and carry on the game and keep on playing. But I can see that for a lot of people, that's been game over. People have gone, no, done. I'm new. I've just spent ages painting my nice new model. I'm out of here. Do you see it as a barrier for new players?
I think so. Yes, ultimately, right? Because I think when Steve, sorry, he doesn't like the rap because it presents too many choices and there's already a lot to track, which is fair enough. In my handful of games, positioning seems to be the most in depth and most important. Yes, positioning is pretty much where games are won or lost for sure. So yeah, I say ultimately, I think it is, and I think the problem is like it's just when you have to tell someone, well, you have to suck it up, right? You have to just try and keep learning, and I think it's difficult in Warmachine because the game is so black and white. I think if you look at sort of maybe anything with random charges, for example, we're going to
Yeah.
use Sigma and 40k as an example. A lot of the placement abilities in that game, like you place within 9 inches then you could try a 9-inch charge, right? And sometimes you'll get the 9s, and sometimes you won't. And sometimes you might have a really lucky turn, and you can be really inexperienced, but you go all out and place 4 units within 9, and they make all their 9-inch charges, and you manage to, like, maybe overcome a really bad situation or win a game you shouldn't have, and you're like, oh, nice, like, and as a new player, you got away with a bit. Whereas in Warmachine, it's so black and white, right? I threaten 13, you threaten 10, right? So as a new player, I can imagine it's very stressful when your opponent, like, they out threat you, and you're like, okay, what do I do? Do I just run my stuff up and die? Or do I not and then lose on scenario? And I'm going from that point to understanding how to manage that is a lot of losses where you just think, oh, what can I do? Whereas, there's other outs in games like, say Heresy or anything that involves more randomness, whereas the randomness might get you out of a tougher situation.
I think if you start introducing too much randomness, is it Warmachine, and would the existing player base? I certainly wouldn't want to play Warmachine with random charges.
Oh, I don't really want to add more randomness myself, and it's not a problem for me because like me and you, we're at a point where we play to an okay level. It's fine for us, right?
What I mean by that is, I think random, particularly when you talk about random charges, they yes, they can feel great when you roll the double six or whatever to get in, but your opponent can also be like, hang on a second, all you need is I got everything ready, I was prepared, and you rolled a double six, and that's the thing that did me in. There's lots of reasons why I can talk in length about why I think random charges are actually worse for new players, and they are more feel bad, but that's probably another debate.
Yeah, so I think my yeah, do you agree? Random charges aren't great, but I think yeah, the more to the point was that the random charges aren't great, but I think ultimately when the barrier doesn't help new players, and they might argue, well, I could just go play a game like 40k where I don't feel like I have to climb this mountain to somewhat enjoy the game.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
I,
here you go.
yeah, no, I think that's fair. Um, I think that because Warmachine is so different, particularly with a 2D to 6 system, and to the way you can manipulate that. I know Steve has found that really tricky. So for me, because we've been in it, I found it surprising, but he's found it quite tricky. Whereas in sort of 4K, like he's rolling a load of dice. If it's a 4+, you keep it. If it's not, you get rid of it, sort of thing. In relation to that original post, with the feeling of like losing, being told sort of you're just going to lose games. I'm going to come back to that. I think that if you're a new player, unless you're going to steamrollers, where it will be a little bit more, it will be more competitive. If you're sort of practicing and you're getting good, you should be trying to quote get good in your community. I'd really hope that as an opponent would be saying, by the way, here's my threat, but it's the threat of this thing here. Here's, and getting a stick out and going, here's the space you've got. One thing I say to Steve when I sort of coaching him is, you've planned a great turn, but just remember my threat range is this. So if you do go into it, it's going to be a problem. And talking through what the options are. But I can see that's a problem. I think it's probably even more of a problem if two players are new. I think if two players are new trying to learn the game, I can imagine that can be even more frustrating. When you're getting out threatened or whatever.
Yeah, so Steve said 100% Aaron on the comment about out threatening. Dan played a turn where I felt anywhere I moved would have put me in trouble. I really struggled to see a way to play that turn. Then he said what Dan said. I would much prefer if I could roll 15 dice just look for numbers instead of having to calculate map burst death with modifiers. Yeah, okay, there's 2 great points. Apologies. So to the first one, I think that is that's partly due to there's no randomness, right? So when you hard threaten, I know you say you're playing Tyrus and you got Mirage on a unit of Dreadguard Cav, right? They threaten 15, and because the threats are black and white in the game, often you threat 10, maybe 12, etc. If you threaten 15 and say Steve's playing like I don't know Sepsira with a Malefactor and that threatens 10, those are the 2 numbers you threaten, and there's no randomness to that. So when you are as a new player, you're playing against someone that out threats you, it can seem somewhat, what do you do? You just walk in and die, or do you give up on scenario? And to get over that hurdle is, I think part of the problem. And then in terms of the dice, yeah, I think we have played War Machine for so long. I've never really thought of that. Obviously, I did play 40k in that before I started playing War Machine. And then we got into War Machine, and we played it for so long that having to calculate to hit Death 15 is like second nature for us. But I suppose if you only ever played Sigma or 40k, it might seem sort of almost counterintuitive that you've got to do maths with your dice while you're playing the game. I really love the
It's
mat and armor and power
yeah.
system. I never. Do you think that's a barrier as well? I never really thought of that as a
No,
barrier.
no, I don't think it's a barrier, but well, I think it's a barrier for some people. But I think we need to be careful when talking about sort of the new player problem because actually, I think some of these issues are issues if you don't really want to play War Machine. If you want to go and play 40k, you're welcome to go and play 40k. If you want to go and play Star Wars Legion, you can use those dice or Marvel War Crisis Protocol. But I think to some extent, and one thing that sort of frustrates me with companies or with organisations when they sort of move away from their core concept of actually the reason people play War Machine is because of the models, and then when they enjoy the mechanics of War Machines because actually they are unique and they have got these differences. But I definitely think there are some things we can do to improve. Personally, I don't think, or well, adding randomness won't help a new player's experience versus a more experienced player. But I think that having a more new player based scenarios. So if you maybe introduce something where you said there was no assassination before, assassination was not on the table. You couldn't assassinate before turn 3. I wonder how much that would change the game. I wonder if you said actually scoring for some sort of introductory scenarios didn't start until turn 3. I wonder how that would impact. My fear with that would be that you'd get people that are just alpha and that attrition side would still win. But again, there's sort of things I'd like to experience or test around with terrain. I think one of the reasons, when we were playing 40k back in the day, sometimes it felt like you just got alpha shot off the table, and then that's it done. And obviously, trains changed loads over the years, but when you suddenly had a lot more blocking line of sight, maybe that's a thing for new players to add a lot more terrain, so they've got to maneuver around it, and that way it sort of limits sort of the amount that can be killed or placed and things like that. That's how I sort of would tackle the new player problem, as well as making sure people are really aware of how to introduce people and step by step sort of build them up. I think new player leagues could be something that could be really important. Having certain casters that are deeming, it used to be battle box casters, but on the same sort of level where you'd say right, and maybe set lists of going like this is the boom howler list that is your starter list. It's your starter. It's your core box or whatever, and doing those sort of core box events and things might be helpful too. That's what I think could help new players, because I think new players also, we've spoken before about if you come into the game, it can seem like there's a lot to buy, but also when you get to lists like what do I actually put in, what do I choose. But I think that's part of the benefit as well, is the fact that you can customize your list. It's nowhere near the depths of Trench Crusade, but it's also not as simple as I don't know, Star Wars Shatterpoint.
And interestingly, like I know a few people actually posted online saying that like things like hard points on Warjack make it a bit harder to sort of jump into, especially when I came back from
Yeah,
in January, right? I was
yeah,
sort of like a bit resilient to it because I played the game before, so I at least understood what most things meant. Like I look at a card and I knew
yeah,
what all the mat and rat meant, but so the hard picking a war beast loadout was one new element rather than it all being new. But when you sort of look at a war beast or warjack card, it is quite overwhelming even when you're trying to build it and you see these 9 options for your warjack. I mean, war beast sometimes can have 4 options, so you have 12 options you can pick from. Even that's a bit overwhelming. I do agree. Journeyman leagues used to be a thing, and they used to have support from PP. Like Pressgang has had the Journeyman League pack. That's always a good way to get into the game and play in lower points. I think that's a really good point. I don't
I
think
do
the
think
you go.
I do think hard points are a problem new players. Not just that idea of like what's the option to pick, but also if you're building it, what's the option to build, what's the option to glue. Oh no, I've glued the wrong head on. Oh no, I've put the wrong arm on. What's that going to mean? I do see that as being a barrier for new players, but also I can imagine there's a lot of people that are going to say actually it's one thing I really like is that I can custom mechanize my own warjack. But I can imagine that that's a point where you go, God, right, how much, okay, which arm do I use for this game? Which left, which head is actually going to be best? Potentially, I mean, you probably couldn't do this, but if you balanced it, so maybe hard points, maybe the jack cost what the jack cost, and then the hard points were all just all the customized, because I think that adds to it as well when list building, the fact that you've got to think about, okay, how much points is that jack head, arm, legs, whatever, as well, for new players. But I don't think that's necessarily a downside, because your units and your warcaster are set, apart from spell racks, and there's very few attachments now in the game compared to previously.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Interesting, we've not spoke about spell rack, and the day I posted my video on spell rack, Matt Hart didn't ask me anything on Reddit, and I think it was either phrased, "Is there one thing you would change about Mark 4, or in hindsight now, you've been in Mark 4 for a while, would you do differently?" And he answered the spell rack. So it was a freak nature that I posted a video and he answered that. What's your general thoughts on the spell rack?
I think we've gone over this before. I think they're bad for the game. I think that they are bad for new players. I think they make the game stale for experienced players. I think that lists become too homogenized. And I think that it'd be far better to remove the spell rack, give each caster a unique spell rack themselves, so they've got their spells, and it makes you have choices. You can't just have carnage all over the board. It also will help with balance, because then you don't have carnage on every single. I'm using carnage because I think it's a particular problem. A mat buff across a faction, or an armor debuff across the whole faction, or a defense. I think casters were great in Mark 3 and previously, where you felt like you had to choose it, and you might be choosing it just for actually a couple of spells. You might be choosing it for the powerful weapon they carry in their hands. You might be choosing it for the feat, but you've got a choice. Whereas at the moment, we've spoken about how you can basically main one list, play Harask, and then just adapt your spell rack to adapt to each player. I also don't like the timing of it, and I think that's not actually good for new players too. I just think it makes the game more boring and stale. I don't think it makes you have to use your brain as much, because you're always going to take probably 2 or 3 of the same rack. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Very interesting, because I posted that video and it got quite a mixed response. Some people were saying they would like to see it go completely, right? There's no rack at all. Some the opposite, saying no, I think the rack is amazing as it is. I like the choice of the 10 spells, and there was a sort of in between that was like, I like the rack. I don't like that things like deceleration or carnage are on the rack. So I think there's a really mixed response. I found it really interesting. But yeah, I think it probably doesn't help new players either, that you go to build your list and you do your warjack hard points, and then you do your command cards, and then you go, oh, I've got to now pick one of these 10 spells, or 2 of these 10 spells, or 3 of these 10 spells. And I get to pick them every game. It's more information overload for a new player.
Cognitive load. But I think it's cognitive load when most new players are going to go, I'll pick these 2 every single game, or these 3 every single game. So I think it gives the visage of being customizable, and making your warcasters can be just as customizable as your warjacks. But actually, there's probably not the data on this, because I don't know how you could gain it, but I'd love to see the percentage breakdown of each spell rack's options, how often it's taken, because I bet there's a top 3 in every faction, and there's the rest of them that are less than 10%. But that might be wrong.
Unfortunately, on long shanks, you're not required to put what you rack for every game. That was the only way I think you could track it. But you're not. Are you not?
I love that. Yeah,
that would be cool.
It'd also be cool if you had to rack different. If you went to a tournament, you couldn't rack the same spell twice. That would also that'd be a way I'd start liking spell racks.
Well, if you got a spell rack of 3 though, you can't quite do that, because you need 12.
Yeah, no. But if you got a spell rack of 10, no, you know what I mean though.
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, I wouldn't mind them saying that you have to play two lists. If you bring two lists, you have to play both of them again, at
Yeah,
least in
I'd
one
go for that.
game.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that interesting. So I think also, yeah, maybe some scenarios for newer players
yeah,
could be nice. But I think ultimately what we've boiled it down to, and I think there is that hurdle in War Machine, and I think and it's not so much a hurdle to become competitively successful. I think that's another jump, but it's just a hurdle from being coached to feeling like you can stand on your own 2 feet.
and I think that hurdle varies depending on who you're facing. If you're because there are some people that might be experienced, but I don't mean this disrespectfully, are going to help are not going to be constantly considering their positioning of every model. So they'll give you chances, they'll give you things to kill, and that's fine. Those people are just as needed in the community as the hyper competitive. But I think if you're surrounded by a load of hyper competitive people, you know, I think it was one of our locals that back in Mark II said that he went 100 games losing, and that if that's true, that's a lot of resilience and a lot of respect to that person for losing that many games
100 losses
and
on
still.
scenario, I imagine.
Yeah,
No, I agree, and I think 'cause, you know, when I saw that response on Reddit, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna write something really clever and insightful, and I'll help this guy out. But ultimately, you know, I could have oh, well, ask your opponents for advice, and you know, track your games and see where you can do better. But I think ultimately it boiled down to you can do all these things, but yes, you will play 50 games and lose 50 games before you win your first game. And I was sort of thinking, wow, when when we've played it for so long, we don't sort of really think of that. And we don't, be honest, we don't see that many new players come into the game.
do you, but yeah, I think I think that's a separate issue. I think there's a new player influx issue. I think that is a real concern. But do you think that really, if you were not new to wargaming, so let's say you played 40k, you played everything as well,
Mm.
do you think you could really, if you were, for want of a better phrase, coached or taught properly, do you think it would still take 50 games for you to get your first independent win?
Um, well, here's the thing, right? I don't want to ego Andy, me or you, but I think we're competent in tabletop gaming. So I would
Yeah,
say no. But then I would say if you're more of a mid table to lower table player,
yeah.
the game needs all of them players because only a few people can be
I'd say
top
yeah,
table players, right?
yeah. Casual players are
Um,
essential.
and those players are the ones that will take a long time. You know, and there's people, you know, people go to tournaments and go 0-4, right? And fair play to those players because you know we need them. Everyone needs to play the game. And I would say there will be some people that is their practical experience of the game. And and I think you know they do have to go through this process of losing games to get their first win. And I think it comes back to in other games you might feel like you lose, but still do things in the game. But because War Machine is so black and white and there is no randomness, it's much easier for you to feel locked out of a game.
Do you think that's because there's you win the game and the game stops? Well, that can happen well before the time, and it can happen well before you get to the end of the seventh turn. Do you think that's put that because these other game systems we're talking about will say you keep on playing to the end of turn six, unless someone concedes, or you're completely wiped out. You know, Star Wars Legion, Heresy, 40k, Warhammer Age Sigma, all the rest of it. Like you keep on playing, so you sort of you have more opportunities to kill stuff and do things because there's not a you win this turn mechanic. But on the flip side, to that would it not be if you're losing anyway? Um, you know how much better are you going to feel? I'm interested, this might be the case, how better will these people that feel negative about losing, how much better will they feel if they still lose but they kill five more models? I don't know the
I
answer.
think other games maybe. So I really only have really experience in Sigma, 40k, and Heresy. I mean, and I just put Middle Earth strategy battle game as well. But I would say other games have do a good job of being able to score consistently. even if you are in a losing position. So even, and I think the difference is that even if you don't know that you've lost, so you don't know that you've lost, and say you're playing an experienced player, they might know that you've lost scenario wise. You as a newer player, you don't feel like you've lost so much, right? With the secondary missions in 40k, they do a good job of having some easy to score missions that you will probably score every turn. So even if you
Yeah.
lose like 90 to 60 and your opponent knew that by turn 2 or turn 3 they couldn't catch you up, you at least feel
Yeah.
by the end of the game, oh, I scored 60 points. He scored
Yeah.
90. I killed some of his stuff. He'll cover my stuff. I lost, but okay, I still scored 60 points. And Sigmar has got, like, you can score 5 points a turn. And typically, there's a few easy battle plans you can score for a few of the games. And obviously, the game's bigger in scale. There's more models. There's more randomness. There's more engagements, and it's more messy. So more you are going to kill something, just through the course of the game. And I say those games do maybe a better job of at least making it feel closer, even when
Right.
it isn't.
Yeah. I think that's completely fair. Do you think War Machine needs to feel closer for just new players, or do you think it needs to feel? Do you think there needs to be a change, sort of, so like say a new player pack, or do you think it would be beneficial for the whole game if it was made to feel closer? We're talking about people's feelings now rather than the sort of the facts of actually the results. Do you think that would be beneficial for sort of the growth of the game?
It's interesting, but I suppose it depends on what the game War Machine wants to be. I think for
Yeah.
the game War Machine wants to be, no, it wants to
Right.
be this competitive game. And I think even though Steam Forge Games hasn't come out and said that, I think the way the rules are still a competitive game. So I think if it wants to be that, it shouldn't try and make it feel any closer. It should keep this very tight scoring, very black and white rule system. Assassination should stay, and ultimately that hurdle remains. If that's the games it wants to be, it should stay like that. My only worry is getting new players into the game.
Yeah. So
Um,
should we? So so maybe should we? Is it worth shifting the conversation to what we think could be done to help get new players into the game?
yeah, yeah. Because I haven't really got any great answer for that, so I'd love to hear your answer.
Okay. So a couple of things. I think that the way they've packaged battle groups, things like that, and the sort of the core groups, things, I think that's great. I think really actually pushing that sort of format of okay, actually start off with Warcaster. I don't Warcaster versus Warcaster with a couple of jacks has never really worked for War Machine. But actually, really pushing that sort of 35 point level, where it's just that core box or whatever, that box which you can buy as a whole. I think that would be great. I think having a new range of scenarios where they are based for players to learn and for the game to be a little bit longer, and maybe assassination isn't an option for till turn 3, and that sort of thing. But you could increase kill box, or say that you can't have your caster go in a certain place or whatever. Those sort of things I think can help. I think that the game definitely needs to have more video content from their creators. I think including tutorials, including battle reports, including video guides of how to actually play War Machine. The learn to play War Machine sort of thing. I think that as a game, it'd be great if they have released an actual two-player starter set, or a starter set which was for new players to actually begin their journey in War Machine and play against other new players. And it might be rather than the core sets they have, rather than there's two player sets, actually producing a product that is called the War Machine Starter Bundle or whatever it might be called. So you can then get those sort of core rules down and play with your buddies. And it could be that if you're going to go for those customizable jacks, you've got a jack that has different arms, but it's a basic, it can be like a mercenary jack that can attach to any one of these casters, but you've got a box of caster of 4 or 5 different casters that can be from different factions. So if you get it, you can choose which faction you're going to play, and sort of more generic mercenary like sort of troops, like, oh, here's a 5-man range unit, here's a 4-man or 5-man melee unit, You paint them this color. Their stats you could have their stats change slightly. If they're for Kador, they could increase 1 point of armor. I don't know. If they're for Signal, they can increase Rat. If they're for Dusk, they'll increase defense. That sort of thing. Maybe that's just, and it's a product, and it should be quite cheap and quite easy and accessible. All one piece, all easy to paint. To say, actually, if you're a new player and you want to play Warmachine, here's this great box, and maybe there's a 2-player box which is built with guides to say how you can play Warmachine without all of the sort of complexity that I think the 2-player sets have. I think the 2-player sets are great for experienced players and great for players that know the core mechanics and they know the faction they like. I don't necessarily think they're good for new players. Even building the models, I don't think they're great for new players. I think 3D printing and one-piece products, one-piece figurines are fantastic for new players. I also think that coloured plastic poses for new players are great for if you try and make them cheaply, but you then got to produce it on a mass scale. But if you have like red Kador versus blue Signar come out the box pre-built, it means that you can pick it up and go. With dice as well available. We have loads of dice because we're playing in wargaming, but including in War 40k you have the whippy sticks, but it might be a little tape measure or things like that just to help. I think those sort of products can really help. But in addition to increasing video content and releasing some sort of new player pack, or it could just be as easy as delivering the narrative side that we were sort of promised before at was it Gen Con or Adepticon, where we always said about the three focuses on playing, actually getting that narrative play packed down. Because I think there'll be a lot of new players that actually you might not, that the competitive side might not be something you want to do. You actually want to get your mate round on a Saturday evening and you can play this scenario, this narrative journey. I think that would be a great way of getting new players into. So there's couple of my solutions. Yeah, what do you think of any of those?
I like that. So I think Steve quickly says, 100% agree. The content comment, I would love to consume more Warmachine content in forms of well-produced battle reports, not just the bird's eye view, 2 people chatting for 3 hours long. I think that's a great point, and I think it gets those sort of things that turn up on people's algorithm and feeds that weren't expecting it to be there, and then they click it, and then they're exposed to it. Always really, really, really good. I think like a 2-player starter set that could include maybe like a Warcaster or Warlock, and then just some non-named units, a non-named Jack, maybe a solo that isn't a named solo. That would be really handy because that would be more of an actual 2-player starter set, and maybe even it's got like a quick rules in it, but it's almost got like, when sometimes you get the 2-player starter set, it's like you can play the game, but you can follow a turn structure according to the book, right?
Yes.
So your opponent goes first, and he moves his Warcaster first and casts this, and like you play out the game as a scripted game. That would be really handy. I think Adepticon is a great shout because Adepticon is one of them places that a lot of people with their aren't for Warmachine, right? 40k, Sigma, Heresy, everything happens at Adepticon. So they do the keynote there, which is a great idea. Maybe keep pushing that and try and get more eyes on Warmachine that hasn't seen it before. I think all of your points are really valid, and I think because what I don't want to see is like I think what we have seen locally. I sort of help run the Harlow Games Club. You help run the Seltzer Club. Is that when the game came back, we had all the people, well, not all of the people, but some of the people that used to play it were very keen to get back into it. But getting new people is still a battle, right? And I don't want it to go very good for like a year or two, and then they have the problem that they're not seeing new players get into it.
And I think that, but also I think there's things like video games versions of it. Just getting the IP out there. But again, if you've got apparel, if you can wear a hoodie down to your local club, I mean, the physical rule book I think is a great move. I think the move to having physical cards will also help. Having things that are more tactile and that actually people can sit and read. and that then you don't have a point of access, a barrier to entry where you've got to have a decent smartphone or buy a tablet or iPad. I think that's a huge barrier to entry, which I really disagree with. I think that I understand the reason why you do it for updates purposes, but um, just I know paper's increased in price, but actually, like you say, having a guide that goes right, here's how you can get through the first couple of turns when you here's model X, here's model Y, will really help as well. But I agree with you. There's certainly at Chelmsford there's an entrenched group who are still playing and enjoying playing, but trying to get sort of the other locals. They like the models, they like the look of it, but it can feel quite overwhelming when you start talking about, okay, here's all the things you can do, but that's actually part of the game that's great. There's all this complexity, but you don't have to do that. You could just hit each other. And I think having those sort of more scenarios and gameplay where you can just go right, yeah, just casters just going for it, or you're dodging around areas or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I think it's maybe it's a sort of attitude you have, right? Because I think me, you, and the people that are still playing, we love how in depth it is, right, and how much we can commit to the game. And Matt Hart sometimes uses the term lifestyle game in the sense that it can just be the one game that you play because you can spend every week you can spend writing lists, and practicing deployment, and then playing with different spells from the rack and slightly changing units, and there's so much going on that it could just be the one game that you play. But on the the other side of the coin, if you're a new player and you're exposed to all of this, it can be a bit overwhelming. And I suppose it's sort of maybe a bit of a personality trait or whatever. But some people will see that depth and be like, great, I can really jump into this, and 6 months down the line, I'm really going to get a good grasp of it. Where other players
Yeah,
will look at it and go, bloody hell, like I have to really commit
yeah,
and learn all of this, and 6 months down the line,
yeah,
I might sort of understand it.
yeah.
And I
And I
suppose,
think that's. I'd be interested. I got into a little bit of Infinity. So Infinity is an infinitely more complex system with a hugely more complex army list building roster. The game itself is far more sort of far more intricate, I'd say. And I've played a couple of games and I've still got my stuff. It's not that I don't want to play it, but I feel like that's a game where you've got to invest all your time in as a new player. So I'd love to know what sort of if they how they've tackled their new player issues, if they've had any, because I can imagine the conversation we're having now about Warmachine is probably a conversation that the Infinity group have regularly, because that's a game that is just inherently more complex and inherently more intricate when you're playing it at the tabletop too, um, in contrast to other systems.
yeah, yeah, and I've heard that about Infinity. Steve Easton from Guild Ball.
Yeah,
He plays Infinity. That's now his
yeah, yeah.
game.
That is his game. Yeah,
And I think that's a sign of personality trait, right? He really deep dive Guild Ball, and he's really deep dive Infinity.
yeah,
Um, and I don't think there is a silver bullet for the complexity slash mountain to hill problem, like climb to problem. I think for some people, that'll really appeal to them, right? Because they'll want
yeah,
to climb that mountain and get that first win.
yeah.
Other people will just think, oh, sod that, right? I'm just gonna go play some 40k and do some casual stuff. And I don't think they should change the game for that. I think the people that have come back to the game have come back to the game because that's the type of game it is. I
The
suppose
reason why
you go in.
there's a reason why their consumers are buying it. There's a reason why people are buying products, not just because the models look nice, but also because they want to play the game. I can imagine.
Yeah, and I suppose the only thing that I don't want to happen is that inhibit new players. But I think maybe the conversation could be more on how do they get new players in rather than changing the game for new players.
That's how I see it.
Mm.
Um, so one thing that's just come to mind is right at the start of this channel, I think you did a video about, is Warmachine a cutthroat game? And we
Mm.
had conversations back in that time. Now I still don't think it's a cutthroat game in the sense that you don't have to um, sort of gotcha people and things like that. But actually, think about it. It's cutthroat in the sense of there is a you win. There's just a you win on a turn. So the game can be cut short I don't necessarily think that means it makes it cutthroat. But upon reflection, do you still think the game is not
Yeah, so I
cutthroat?
think I titled that video, "Can War Machine only be played in a cutthroat way?"
Yeah,
So I think the game ultimately is cutthroat when you compare it to other tabletop games,
right.
right? Not many other games can you have your caster, or can you have one single model die and then you immediately lose. So I think as a game it's pretty cutthroat. There's not much randomness. There's certain win or lose elements which are immediate, and there's not much given to you for free. Do you only
Yeah,
have to play it in a cutthroat way? No, I don't think you do,
no.
right? And even if you are playing without without the toddler shoes on, and you are playing someone that said, "I want to play properly," I don't think you have to play it in a cutthroat way still. You can offer them all of your threats, you can offer them all of your rules, you can say, "This is how the scenario works," make sure they understand that. I don't think you have to play in a cutthroat way. But I do still think that I'm not sure if it's an issue, but I do still think that hurdle remains, even if
Yeah,
you are being as friendly as possible, but still playing properly.
yeah. And I think when we go back to that Reddit article, like I said at the start, I feel like it was more sort of bad form for the community. I feel they were from that Reddit post. It sounded like he was playing in a community that were playing it in that cutthroat manner.
Hmm.
But again, that's a very small post. There's probably a lot more that person could say about how each person in his community, his or her community, really engage with them and all the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a few people replied saying like, "Oh, why don't you ask for feedback after every game, etc." So he's the person who posted that said, "Yeah, I'll start doing that, etc." But I do still think even if you are getting feedback every game, you still do have a mountain to climb, even with
Yeah,
feedback. Um,
yeah,
But I think, ultimately from discussion, I think that I don't think the game should be changed to account for that. I think
right.
they should have better. War Machine should be doing their utmost. Not War Machine, I suppose. Steam Force Games should be doing their utmost to be getting the game into the eyes of people who haven't seen it, and maybe trying to win over the people that are on the fence. But should they change their game? Should they change their game to change the current nature of it and how harsh it is? I don't think they should. Um, what do you think? Do you think you sort of agree with
I
that?
agree. Agree. I don't. I think that if there was the new player experience, I think it is an experience of hardship. It's an experience of building resilience. It's an experience of having to have a growth mindset and learn and develop. Um, and it's not. And we've gone away from play like you've got a pair, but I think a lot of it is actually just sometimes you might just need to play like you've got a pair and just get on with it and take a loss and then actually talk about and reflect how you can improve. Um, and I think the point earlier where you were like, oh, people might not feel as negative if they get to roll more dice. It's like, yeah, they're still lost. If people are looking at results, they're still got the loss at the end of it. Will killing 3 or 4 more models make them feel better? Obviously, we encourage people to carry on playing in scenario to try and get that extra point, to try and get that whole more victory points and kill points and all the rest of it. Um, but I think for some people, War Machine just isn't for them, and I think that that's okay. And I think actually, while I don't necessarily agree with the whole of page five's got to pay, I think one thing that Mark II War Machine did really well is they marketed their product for competitive players and were like, this game is hard. You bring your broken stuff, I'll bring my broken stuff. We'll see what happens. And I think while language has changed, I thought that really clear marketing structure made it really successful. And I think Steamforged games can do this if they start delivering with that whole um, narrative, competitive play, and um, hobby aspect. It's just a
Hmm.
shame at the moment we've only seen really that competitive play being sort of pushed. So the new play experience will be very different if all three of those sort of columns were being equally weighed.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're right there. I think War Machine maybe should Steam Force games bother trying to dilute the game down should they bother trying to be like, oh, you can play softly if you want, or do you just keep to the you bring an army list, I bring an army list, we both bring a hard army list, and then we play the game.
Yeah.
And that's quite an interesting. I've not really thought about that. Do you think that they should try and dilute down that
No.
attitude, or they
No.
think that they should just roll with the similar
I
attitude?
think they should. I think you go and you say, actually, you know what? If you want a game that's really competitive, that's going to be hard to learn, but actually once you've mastered it, you can have such great depth and you're going to really enjoy it. That's what Warmachine is. But what I think they need to include is, like, say, those small steps aside within it. That, okay, if you're a new player, here's these small steps you can do to progress. Here are these entry level scenarios, things like that. But as well, here are the narrative play. So it's a game where you bring your best, I bring my best. But also, by the way, we've got this giant Barnabas scenario and this model that you can buy to play and to work as a team or work collaboratively, or try and win a game that way, where actually you're both trying to I don't know, find the gems or the crocodile's eggs, or you're trying to find zoo or whatever. I think it's that sort of
Not a
thing.
stream goes by where we don't mention dinosaurs, do.
But I think that's, and if they didn't want to introduce new factions or characters or breeds in that narrative play, again, this might be stuff that's been planned. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve says, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I feel like some of the first few games could be done on a smaller field. So instead of moving around, you just get into moving and attacking sooner. I think that would also that could happen with a two-player starter set, which is a starter set and it's a scripted game. You can almost deploy in charge
Yeah,
range, right? And then you just like
yeah,
it tells you that you charge your opponent's jack on turn one, and
yeah,
you just do it, right?
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I do agree. I think maybe there could be sort of like a even if like you play 5 games and they're all structured and scripted in 5 games, and then so you at least get to learn the game without worrying about anything else. That could help.
yes, yeah,
Um, yeah. So yeah, I do agree with that. I think I agree that and also if you have a narrative way to play, you then can keep the competitive play as this. Bring your best list. You're both playing your best list. You're both playing competitively. Great. But if you don't want to do that, you can then play narratively, right? Whereas at the moment there isn't that way to play narratively, so you only have this competitive way to play. And as a new game, that new player, that's hard. If you're playing narrative games as your new game, and primarily you're doing a story, but you're also learning how to use your mat and your rat and your defense and your power. When you get to play proper game, you at least know a little bit of how the game works. Then you can start worrying about positioning and scenario and all of that.
yeah. I don't know if SmogCon you ever played. Was it Rumble Slam or whatever it was called, or something, where you basically had your Colossal and a Caster in a wrestling ring, and those sort of narrative games, they're that'd be just as good. Or you've got Warjacks where actually when an arm gets destroyed within this arena, you go and choose a different
Yeah,
point that round one, you have rounds and you change the system points depending on what's broken or damage. I don't know.
yeah,
That's the narrative people to organise.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think we sort of come to a conclusion that I think we don't think the game should change to make the new player experience easier. I think the
no,
hurdle that you climb is a part of having a game which has so much depth and skill ceiling.
yeah, yeah. But I do think the community does need to change. I think that's a side note. I do think the communities need to be more conscious of how they can make sure people get in, are having engaging games, and that as someone that has done it, you can play. You can still enjoy the game if you're demoing someone and you're losing and you're showing them how to assassinate you. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's where that's a shift that sort of some communities need to do to try and maintain new players and get them in and actually keep them engaged. It's the old thing. You know, Someone giving the demo should never win the demo. It should always be the person that is playing. It can feel real bad if it's like, oh yeah, well that's you've lost turn two on scenario. Well done, good game. Shake the hands.
Yeah,
Like,
but we
what?
do agree that post that stage,
Post that stage,
there is
it's
a mountain to
really
climb.
hard still.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it's still really tricky.
But we are saying that we think that when you climb that mountain, it's worth it. We
Yeah.
shouldn't dilute the game down so that mountain to climb is harder. And if anything, maybe Steamforce games should market towards that. But we do think that Steamforce games should be trying to do as much as they can to get new eyes on the game.
Which they may be able to be doing. I don't think it's I don't think they're saying the eyes on the game either. I think it's. I can't imagine it's even a problem with getting people to purchase the models, because the models are increasingly complex, getting increasing quality, and they're actually better to paint. They're more enjoyable to paint. There's less barnacles, I think, and there's less rivets for me and things like that. And
So
LEDs.
actually had a really so this week I've got an interview with Sherwin and Russ coming up, and amazingly Russ showed me some of the initial artwork from the new Frozen and Forgotten box from the NIS. And one of the initial CAD they had for Lanissa had 20 something rivets on Lanissa. And a little bit of hair on her head. And what Russ did as part of the thing, like she was like, remove all them rivets, remove this little bit of hair on her head. And I didn't realize that they actually are making decisions in their design process to make painting easier now. So old Umbre is a good example of that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they'll talk about that in depth during your interview, but I think that's really important. I think that's a real benefit for new players.
Absolutely. And I think I'm actually going to do a video probably in a week. I've got stuff lined up for next week. But my old Umbre has arrived now, the core box, and the quality of it is just fantastic. So I'm going to do a video on that as well. Steve said he's looking forward to Welsh Masters, getting to watch all the games live, how people make decisions, and how everyone interacts with one another. It'll be really great for you, Steve, and it'll be really great to have you with us. And I'm quite a skill expressive person. He likes Warmachine because you can do well when you're good at the game, which is and it's just a long road to get to that point. And he's put in brackets personally, but it's a long road for everyone. I promise you, Steve.
Yeah.
Greg said, thanks for tuning in, Greg. When my game shop was at its height of players, it was very difficult to bring new players in because we basically had to let them know that it wouldn't win against vets for probably a year of playing. Yes, absolutely. You know, that is what it is. And especially when you're joining a new group of players, which are all experienced, that's probably the hardest way to get into the game.
Unlike other games, you can't just buy the list and it'll win. It's like, because positioning is so key. And I think that's.
And I think a lot of the time the list is good because it's got these internal synergies. You know, if someone gave me the Infernals list that's winning at this point, I probably still wouldn't be any good with it, even though I know how the game works.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand how that list works and what the solos do and why is that solo strong in that list and where should it be on the board and where should I apply the buff and. You know, there's so much to learn, and that's why the skill expression is so high, because you can truly become so skilled at the game. It's really interesting. So, a couple of things. Did he ask me anything? Matt confirmed that pigs are officially back for next year. Yeah, so they are going to get the same treatment as Dark Operations did this year. So they're going to be available to print through the subscription.
Reed's going to be so happy.
Yeah, and also, if they go along the lines of Dark Operations, there'll be a couple of new units, like Criterions and the Iconoclast Grudges. That's really exciting. Pigs are back on the menu.
Yeah.
I think Pigs will be really good.
Yeah, and you're going to tell me now he also confirmed Madrak 4?
No one asked that question, weirdly. No one asked, will Madrak come back with 2 arms as axes? Bizarre.
I need to get on the next one, because
bizarrely, there was a lot of people asking still for a Gravedigger Colossal.
Okay.
It's like, why, dude? They're trench warfare guys that are parachuted in and work in trenches. Why would they have a Colossal?
Well,
another
going underground.
No,
being underground.
I don't think to get a Colossal. Another thing is that for old Umbre, They were asked, will they get an 80 or 120mm base?
Yeah.
Matt said, anything's possible. But also,
Right.
he dropped a rule from one of them base sizes, which was Fortune Hunter. So one of those base sciences has Fortune Hunter as a rule, which I know you love that rule. I thought of you when I saw that. So I'm going from an army of Fortune Hunter to another army of Fortune Hunter. My wife has just crawled along the floor, bless her.
I legitimately thought from because I didn't see the
Oh, she's crawling
head
back.
end.
Yeah,
I
okay.
thought you suddenly got like a Newfoundland or something. 'Cause I just saw this. Saw the black coat or hoodie, whatever it is. I was like, and I was thinking like, if you've not got a cat, because that'd be quite a big
That was
cat.
just my wife,
Uh,
bless her. Uh, Steve said that is why I think like 2v2 games should really be really good. Stick an amateur with a vet on each side, and it should be a great learning experience.
That's planned for event. Are we hoping to run once I get that feedback back from the venue, which is. I sound like Steamforge Gage repeating the same comment, don't I? It's to be confirmed. We're waiting for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said it in a keynote last year. We're still waiting for it.
Uh,
Press gangers, we're waiting for that. That'd be good.
yeah.
Any
That's
time now,
nice.
that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else was they asked me? Anything? I sort of read the answers the other day. I found it really interesting. Pigs. Well, we do know at least old Ombre is now going to get an 80mm or 120mm base. And if the Colossal has Fortune Hunter, that'd be great. Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Was that fully boosted to hit on characters on your Colossal?
I heard that that orc killer cam in the background of the Kithgard
Ooh.
art. Yeah, I heard that. Is actually Madrigal.
Oh, that is my dreadful. So Matt did say in the argument, I think that is a super heavy warjack. We know that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's not a troll in a suit. Damn it.
Oh, he didn't. Did he deny that?
Well, he said
Did
it's
he
a super heavy
deny?
warjack, so it can't be a troll in a suit.
I mean, is Karchev a warjack?
True.
Yeah.
Steve said, when are you getting a Crix expert on the channel? We'll do that sometime. We will do that sometime. I don't really know who's currently a Crix expert.
Not too bad. Try and get Matt on to talk about.
Oh, that would
Crix.
be great. But the thing with Matt is we have to go through the official Steamforge game process, and that can't be a live stream. We got very lucky with Jamie on a live stream because he didn't realise that till 10 minutes before recording it couldn't be a live stream.
Sure, we can. Yeah. I'm sure we can ask the CEO of Steamforge and
as a friend, he could cover. Big Top Gaming, thanks for joining. Hope you're well. Warmachine hasn't been kind to new players for quite some time. I don't think contemporary products are changing that either. Nope, I think that's fair, and I think we've sort of agreed that we don't think it needs to be made easier for new players. Just maybe they should market better towards this game of great depth and great skill ceiling. And one day you can be okay at the game like me and Dan. Not good, but okay.
Yeah. Tune in next week to find out our results of the Welsh. Where
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure we'll do a live stream Sunday evening.
No, we're not doing. No, we're definitely not. We are. Might do some live streams in the car.
We'll definitely do some shorts in the car, and post rounds about updating. Round 1, we're all 0-1, and it's a great start. Coming next Saturday.
Yeah. Head up. Round 2, we both get a draw. Oh, somehow. Yeah.
World Mastery really good. Let's talk about World. So, what would we've got 6 rounds. You're taking. Have you decided who you're taking yet?
I'm taking Dusk. No, I still haven't decided. Let's try and get some new content because we've talked about like what we expect to do. If it's not you, Aaron, who's going to win the Welsh Masters?
It won't be me, that's for sure. So there's a guy called Olov coming from Europe. Currently, I think the highest ranked guy on long legs, like 642 rating. 642.
Okay, yeah.
So he's a shout. There's a couple other guys from Europe who are above 600. Then there's Matt Golliger, Matt G from the UK. David S from the UK.
Okay. So who's winning it? Who's your name? Who's your pick?
I'm going for Olov.
Olov, what does he usually play? Which faction?
Don't know. He's rating 642. I'm going rating
Is he?
alone.
I'm gonna ask a question. Which nationality is he?
Sweet. Blue flag with a yellow cross in it.
Yellow cross, like the cross, or do you mean a
Let me let
crucifix?
me let me quickly investigate this live while
Okay,
you
they
tell
are
me who you think will
two
win.
very different nations.
So oh no, it's not a cross. It's a blue with the two yellow lines in it. One and then one that way.
That's Sweden.
Yes, Sweden. He's rated
Okay.
627. I think he's going to take it.
Okay. Okay.
Then if not, UK wise, there's Jamie Perkins. Good shout. Rated
Have you heard of
600.
him? Yeah.
Some robot. Leo playing Gravediggers. He went 5-1 at
Right.
War Manchester. David
Yeah.
S. Won War
Yeah.
Manchester. He'll play Horus
Yeah.
for 6 games. And Matt
Yeah.
G with Storm Legion.
Okay. Okay.
Who do you think's going to take it? There's also, I'll give you 2 more names as well. There's Wout, and then a name I'm not going to, second name I'm not going to try and present. He's rating 617. He hasn't got his flag on his profile.
So, I'm gonna pick a name that I don't want to say it, but I do actually think this person's going to go all the way.
Yeah.
I actually do think Aaron Wilson playing Firequill is going to take it down. That's my hot take. And then everyone's going to realise how Fortune Seeker or Hunter, whatever it's called, is just stupid. And
That'd be
the
great for
internet's
you
gonna-
because they might nerf Firequill.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm hoping. January update, just the whole
It's
that
great
whole
because
list.
they can nerf Firequill. Then I'm on Old Ombre, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's fine.
No,
There's
I think
nothing. It's all bringing old Ombre, so it's.
I
Okay.
don't think I'm in a chance for winning because it's just not that good. There'll always be a game like when I played for the last Steamroller. One game, I just didn't score an objective. I just didn't leave anything on it to score it. And that happened at least one of my games, if not 2 of my games. I was just mentally tap out. It is what it is.
Do you think an old Ombre will turn up in the top 10?
Yes, because they've got the core box now. So I think they will do. There was an Australian event where a old Ombre team, it was a team event, came 4th, and they only had the first 2 boxes.
Wow.
I think there will be an old Ombre player in the top 10 for sure. Because now you've got Maxim, you've got the Lupine Apexes, you've got the Liegeman, and you've got the Animus. I think they'll go to one player top 10.
Okay.
I think so. Those Lupine Apexes can kill a whole unit themselves, which is fantastic for 4 points. Yeah, I think they'll go top 10. Which faction do you think will take it? What army list?
Signar or Gravediggers?
So Storm Legion or Gravediggers?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Storm Legion.
Interesting.
I don't want that, but
I think a Shiki Brine Bloods might take it.
Well, I said to you already.
Yeah, but
Like,
not me. There's Jacob from the UK team England, running Brine Bloods, and I think maybe Olov might be running Brine Bloods, who is the European guy.
Well, if Olov is, then
Yeah, I think they could take it, and I think if not, I would probably put a cheeky place on Gravediggers. And one person I'd never rule out is David with his Horus.
Yeah. Okay. Which Steam Forge Games employee do you think is going to go the highest?
Oh, Jamie.
Nah, Fraser, all the way.
Oh, I think they're both running Teleclaim Shard.
Yeah.
And I think they're both running Cyrus and Kyrax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. The battle of the dragons. Steam said Cricks to win it all. Well, I think they're within a shout. Necrovectorian win rate is quite high. Kaifoss is carrying them on the shoulders at the moment.
Yeah.
We'll probably see some Mark III factions, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll probably see some Infernals.
Infernals will be highest Mark III.
Some
Grimkin will actually go out. Yeah.
Some Exalted, Scorn Exalted do weirdly well whenever they're played. I think the rest then sort of don't do so well.
Yeah.
Then I think, and then we've got Kithgard following Welsh Masters. So are you interested in Kithgard? Are you going to jump into that? You are, because you've got Shadow Flame Shard at the moment, but you're not big on
Yeah,
them.
they're in a box. Yeah, they're built. They were.
What don't you like about them?
Everyone else is playing them.
Yeah, true, true.
It's basically like everyone else suddenly got a Shadow Flame Shard army,
Locally,
and
Sherwin and you and
they
Dave and Rid has them.
Rid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair.
Um. Yeah. So Kithgard 2026 slash second half of Shadow Flame, second half of Dusk's. Like
So do
sort
you
of.
reckon you'll get the set? You'll get the other army list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna get the Frozen and Forgotten box for Lanissa?
Already ordered. Already ordered.
Already ordered.
If it turned up, it's not going to. If it turned up before Friday, I'd get those models painted and I'd have some of them in and multiple of
So
them in
I didn't
list.
know because I don't know much about the law, but Sherwin explained that they're called the Final Hunt because they are the last Nis in the world, pretty much.
Yeah.
And their last final hunt is going to go try and hunt down the last of the Everblight stuff before they die. Very cool. I didn't realise that why they called the final hunt.
Very cool.
Pretty cool. And she's got a Weapon Master bow, which is pretty sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty sick.
Pretty sick.
Steve said that is what I don't like about Warmachine. I don't like that people can play the legacy armies. Well, unfortunately, Steve, if you are someone that's got a legacy army, they'll have a different opinion.
Yeah. There will be people leaving the game if they are told they
Yeah,
can't
and
play.
I quite like because if I'm honest with you, outside of Infernals and Grimkin with their Yu-Gi-Oh trap shit, the rest of it feels like pretty weak-ish compared to the rest of the game. So it's like you can still play. It's like when you say like you can play a game for free, but eventually you have to like pay £10 to like upgrade your game to the full version. It's like you can still play, but once you've lost the Mark IV armies for like a year straight, you'll probably buy a Mark IV army anyway. It's just like best of both
Yeah.
worlds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. So we've got Kithgard. Do you reckon they're going to be quite a shooty army?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think they're going to be proper mixed arms, but I think they're going to be. I think it's going to be low. I don't think it's going to be high volume of shooting attacks. I think it's going to be high. I think there's going to be a lot more melee focus on their troops.
Yeah.
I think their beasts are going to have a bombard attached to their back.
Yes.
A lot of ambush. A lot of ambush. A
Yes.
lot of advanced way. A lot of traps. Sort of fortifications. Yeah.
They showed on the Ask Me Anything actually. They showed 3 rules from the Watchtower. So in the artwork, there's that big tower. That is going to be a model called a Watchtower.
Right.
That has got marked target, which is in the Brian Bush faction. So if you're within like a certain range, you get +2 to hit with range attacks.
Yeah.
It's a structure, so it can't be charged, which is really nice. Not being able to charge is good. And there was another rule in it, which I can't remember what it is now. But that is going to be a model, the Watchtower.
Right.
Would be interesting. Good structures are interesting.
I'm going to be painting them very different as well. So
okay. You're not going to go for the blue trolls?
No, it's more my paint. I'll paint it in a different style, different process. So back when I had patrols before, I primed everything white. Since then, I've been primarily black with a Zenithal, but I'll be going back to priming white with those guys.
So do you do slap shop? Do you like prime black and then dry brush Zenithal?
Kind of, or just with spray can, just to get a level of depth, so I can just see some places where I want to keep the shadows. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I won't do trolls.
Steve said, what do you think about Warjack rules like Slam Headbutt? I've never used them or seen them used. Should they be removed from the game? Great question. So I actually headbutted someone this week in Warmachine, so not in general.
Yeah.
My Varroga jumped and headbutted Helga to knock her down. But slams and throws and tramples, I suppose they're the 4 things left in the game. Throws got really made a lot worse in the current edition. Now it's a D6 in a direction. You don't get to add. You used to have a strength stat. You used to add your strength stat, right, or half your strength stat. I can't remember. So you used to throw things further, and you could pick a target for your throw before. Slams are the same as they always were.
Yeah.
And tramples are the same as they always were. I think they're used pretty rarely in the game. Like, have you done power attacks in Mark 4?
No.
Yeah, so obviously
Mhm.
not every Warjacker and War Beast has access to all of them anymore. You have to
Yeah.
have the icon for it. And then if you are going to do it, I'd say it's very niche. And I think what doesn't help, with the game being so lethal, why slam something where you can just kill it, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you want to say you're trying to score an objective, well, if you slam something out of the way of it, you will score it. But I'd say 90% of the time, if you can slam it, you can just get into it and attack it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the game's so lethal, you probably just kill it instead.
Yeah.
Should they be removed? No. I think power attacks are super cool. I think they should probably just be made a bit better. It doesn't help that I think it's another thing that you have to track now, right? Oh, do I have the headbutt icon or the trample icon or the slam icon? And I think previously, right, get me wrong in this, you scored only in your own turn, and if you scored enough, you'd win. In Mark
Yes.
3, right?
Yes.
So if you
Yes.
slam something out of the way and you scored the points in your turn, you would win.
Yeah. Yes. That's
So currently, if I slam something out of the way and then score enough points, your opponent then has their turn to get points back and then probably kills the thing that you just slammed.
Yeah.
Trample is still, I'd say, as good as it ever has been. There's nothing changed about Trample than it ever was. I'd say it's just quite niche because single wound infantry aren't really about anymore. So you're playing against normally 40 mil plus multi wound infantry, which you can't trample. So trample's turned off a lot. Headbutt is really niche because you lose all of your initials for doing the power attack. So things are so accurate these days that often you can just hit them without knocking things down. So why would you headbutt?
Yeah.
And then you've got a throw, which is incredibly niche. It's worse than a slam, really. Yeah. So I think probably you don't do them often, partly because of the way the scenario scored, and because the way that everything's so accurate and so lethal. If you're in range to do a power attack, you're probably better off just killing the thing.
I'd be happy for them to just be removed. I think that.
It's such a shame, though, isn't it? Because if you think back to Mark 2, the point where you were like throwing things at each other to do some crazy turn.
I think you keep like slams and things. So obviously, there's some weapons that do these things. But if you're looking to try and help reduce complexity for new players, I'd happily just remove those icons.
Steve said, "Why slam something where you can just kill it?" Is exactly my experience. I would say, Dan, I can do a headbutt, this and blah. He would be like, "Nope, just attack." Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Spookula bits. Thanks for tuning in. He said they shouldn't cost the focus since you're already losing your initials.
Yeah,
yep,
I think
It's
agree.
a good point. It's a good point. Obviously, if you headbutt something at and also with things having everything having dual attack and often a ranged attack and 2 melees, you give up like 3 attack for this headbutt or whatever, or slam.
And you're going to boost it because if you miss a headbutt, what's the point of doing it in the first place?
Yeah. No, I think making them not cost the focus or fury would help.
Yeah.
I think currently the way the game's scored doesn't help them.
Yeah.
Trample's nullified by the base sizes we play with, really. And throw is really bad. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I don't think the game would really lose much by if you just cut them out.
Yeah.
But it's a shame coming from where we came from just to cut them out.
Yeah.
But I do agree that probably it's another thing that you look at all your icons and then you see headbutt. Say you're a new player, right? You're a new player. You look at your icons. Oh, this thing could headbutt and slam. I'll go work and slam. How headbutt works. You get to a game and then you're like, oh, do I want to slam? Do I want to headbutt? It's another cognitive thing to keep track of, right? Yeah, you probably could get rid of them, Steve. Honestly, but it would be a bit of a shame. I think, to be honest, the only ones I've done recently is headbutt, specifically in a situation where I've got a war beast onto an opponent's caster, and I've used it to headbutt to knock them down, so I can shoot it or kill it with something else. Um,
Yeah.
I've I've certainly not slammed or thrown something in the whole of Mark IV, and I can't say that I remember a time that I've trampled either.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's also partly because with the game being so black and white and it being so lethal, there's not normally those messy situations that you need to trample through something. Like
Yeah.
if something's got in range of my diatrol, it tends to kill my diatrol, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. If I'm within 10 of something, or say 13 with Avenging Force, and I just charge it and kill it. I don't see many sort of like messy game states anymore. They
Yeah.
tend to be like people at each other's threat range, or someone's committed and killed something. There's not that really crazy game where everything's in everyone's threat and it's really messy. You want to keep it because of nostalgia, but we're talking about a new player experience. I would prefer never have to at least think about it. Yeah, and I think it's valid. And I think probably you're right that they could happily go. Bob Meister 2000, thanks for tuning in. I agree that it shouldn't cost a focus. I think that's valid.
Yeah.
I think with things having dual attack and the amount of melee attacks, like initial melee attacks things have, and Warjack still being limited to 3 focus, if you like charge and slam something and then you buy 2 more attacks, you've probably lost 3 or 4 attacks by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think not making them sound focus sounds good, but I think Steve's probably right that the game could probably do away with them and not have lost much.
Yeah.
Especially now you can't like throw at your own stuff or you can't do jank with them.
Yeah, when you could throw your own caster to down the field,
Yeah.
sacrifice its movement to then hit in combat. And that used to happen a lot with Carver.
Yeah, and then when like Walker 2 came out, he could do something similar because he had Stumbling Drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think great point, Steve. I think actually thinking about it, you probably could do away with them.
Yeah.
Versus against the niche times that they somewhat come useful.
Yeah.
You probably just get rid of them. Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got coming up to an hour and a half, so we've got a few minutes left, and then we'll wrap up. And if anyone's got any last minute questions, feel free to fire away. But I think to summarising, as rounding off the topic we came in here for, I think we summarised that the game is quite hard and there is quite a high skill ceiling, but we think the game should lean into that, and the players that they do get to stay should want to stay because of that reason, and that Steamforge Games should hopefully be doing everything they can to get the eyes on new players. And there's probably a bit more they can do in terms of maybe a new two-player starter set that offers a scripted game, or some narrative ways to play that isn't only competitive, or some lower point scenarios, etc., that gets people into the game a bit more easier. Anything you want to add to that, Dan?
And just also some products and particularly video content as well. Just try and make it just like I say, not just eyes, but also getting an understanding of actually what this game's happening, not just a bird's eye view down on the table and actually talking through bits. I think the Play on Tabletop YouTube channel, I think, does a great job of really inspiring people to play the games that they're playing, to explain things as well. They have also little animations, and I think that sort of thing would be fantastic for Warmachine content.
Agreed. But a last question we'll take. Steve, I have a question. Is there a particular place you're looking forward to eating at Wales? Yes, though we haven't booked it.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get there. But there's a great how would you explain it?
Barbecue. Brazilian or Argentinian, I don't know. South American barbecue buffet extravaganza is how I describe it.
Yes, that is it. So we're looking forward to eating there if we can get there. We'll have to try and book a table maybe this week because it will be good to eat there. It's fantastic. It's like a all you can eat meat with like rice and chips in a buffet. It's going to be really good. We'll try and go eat there, Steve. That'll be great. So we'll wrap up there. A massive thank you to anyone who's tuned in and spoke to us. That's been really great. A massive thank you to Dan for joining me and catching up. We won't be live next week because we're attending the Welsh Masters, but we're going to be putting out some shorts of our road trip there and in between rounds, etc. So watch out for that. And until the next one, guys, we'll see you then. Bye.
Take care.